Ozark is definitely more drama than comedy, but they were trying to convince Jason Bateman, and apparently very poorly, that Ozark is not a Black comedy. And he didn't agree and was about to pull a show from Netflix if this was the way they were going to go down the route, and they were beside themselves. So my work with those women was about really standing their ground and recognizing that they had something to contribute, that they were really onto something as far as this is the direction that we need to take this show.
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Aaron, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know. It's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
It's career therapy. It's comedy. It's definitely full-on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck podcast, where we help Gen X leaders who should be at the top of their career, but just don't feel like they are. And this is Erin, one of the co-hosts. I'm a former corporate CEO turned authenticity aficionado, and I am doing an interview today that you will love. Today, we get to talk to Fia Fasbinder, and she's the CEO of Moxie Institute. And they utilize their theatrical techniques and performing arts skills, as well as many other educational skills, to help speakers and corporate leaders deliver killer presentations. And it's part mindset and it's part real work. And so here are some of the things you're going to hear about. First of all, what exactly is Moxie and why it's different for everybody. And you'll hear about how some of the techniques she learned from her years as an actor can help you step up your presentation pre-game. Yes, there is a need to pre-game. I don't usually pre-game. Well, maybe I do in my own way, but it's going to help me change how I pre-game my presentations. Also, how she helped two women at Netflix find their Moxie to push back on Jason Bateman to ultimately do what was right for Ozark. Pretty cool. And then also the small steps that you can take to overcome your fears, or maybe even just go from good to great. So without further ado, here is my interview with Fia.
So I want to start with the simple question. What is Moxie? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. My Jewish grandmother would say chutzpah, but the way I describe it to clients is confidence, but confidence in a way that is unique to you. So everybody has a different way of displaying confidence or a sense of agency. But to me, Moxie is believing the positive voices in your head, as opposed to the negative, which usually feels so much more real. There's a great clip from a play called Lost in Yonkers that they made into a movie, Neil Simon. And the dad says to the kid, "You got Moxie, kid." And the kid says, "What's Moxie?" And his older brother rolls up his sleeves like that. And he's like, "That's Moxie."
It's different for everyone. I love that.
Different for everyone. Sometimes I'll say to clients, it's walking into the boardroom like they owe you money. It's that sense of agency, that sense of belonging, and in a way that is so unique to everybody. You know, I just heard this interview with Jennifer Garner, and she's just lovely. And she has a somewhat shy, girly voice, and she was giggly, and yet her confidence it like shined through. It was in a way that was so unique to her, and so clear that she wasn't trying to put on somebody else's vision of how she should show up in the world as a confident woman. I mean, it was clear that she was completely okay with the sound of her own voice and her giggle and her just kind of quirky sense of humor. And I think that is Moxie.
Yeah, I love it. I think somebody brought this up to me and I hadn't even thought about it. I don't know, a year or so ago, I spent all this time talking about authenticity, and somebody, when I was doing one of my sessions and asking them to sort of define it, one of them said confidence. And I think it really hit me that there is a difference between being authentic and being awkward. And then when you embrace it, it actually shows this level of confidence to other people, right? Like it's sort of like
Completely.
a little tweak makes a big difference.
Completely. We had a team meeting yesterday, and one of our team members said, I feel like we are all members, citizens on Misfit Island. But when we're together, we don't feel this sense of like, that's so true. And I think in the world, everybody feels like a misfit. And if we could just kind of embrace that and say, like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And stop trying to be so much more like other people's vision of what a confident woman looks like. And I know that's so much easier said than done.
Right. Well, let's go back into your background a little bit, because you come with an acting background, and then you've translated a lot of that in what you do to help people with their presentations and their, shining in meetings and on stages. Tell us a little bit about your background and what made you want to then do the Moxie, start the Moxie Institute.
Yeah, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I started out as an actor. I went to NYU for acting and was acting in New York for a long time. Felt like an eternity auditioning and, temping and waiting tables and in between. And I got offered the role of understudying all of the female leads in The Scarlet Letter on Broadway. And it was all of them. That happens a lot. And it was kind of like the break of a lifetime. And I went on a couple times. One night in particular, I was asked to go on, and I don't know. I haven't unpacked why it happened, but in any case, for that particular night, I froze on stage, like actor's worst nightmare, no words coming out, frozen. And I didn't recover gracefully. In fact, the other actors had to improv a scene to get me off of stage. Needless to say, I was not invited back as an understudy after that very public failure. So that really threw me into a depression, because I completely stopped acting and being on stage, which is really what I love to do. And about a year later, I was asked by a group called the 52nd Street Project, which is a group in New York City. I'm not sure if they're still around, but at the time they brought arts education classes to inner city youth. And I was asked to teach a theater class, and I accepted. And my heart burst open in a way that I didn't know was possible. The idea of using acting to teach, that wasn't about teaching acting. It was about giving these kids a sense of agency, a safe space, sense of responsibility, somebody relying on them, even a place where they could express their anger about, their lives in a productive way. And it really changed my trajectory. And I realized at that point that I had a teacher's heart, that was what really blew wind up my skirt and got me out of bed in the morning. So I went back to school. I got my master's in education, and I was teaching theater at UCSD, which is the University of California, San Diego here. Came back to San Diego. And I was teaching there for a while, and I was asked to take over the public speaking department. And at the time, I thought, I know nothing about public speaking, but I'm also a highly creative person. And I was so bored of teaching acting at that point. I'm like, this is a great challenge. I jumped in. I realized so quickly how many bridges there were between the performing arts and what speakers have to do. And then we had kids of our own. And I switched from teaching undergrads to extension, which is mostly adults in the community that need public speaking for career development. A lot of engineers from Qualcomm, because Qualcomm is here in San Diego. So I really had to up my public speaking teaching game. And it went from any kind of theory to really brass tacks. This shit has to work because people are relying on this for job interviews and promotions, et cetera, et cetera. And I was being asked to coach so much on the side and come in and lead workshops that I was running out of time to teach my classes. And my husband, who was just a consummate entrepreneur, is like, I think you have a business here. And at that point, I was like, I am not an entrepreneur. I am not a business owner. I am an acting teacher and a public speaking teacher and a professor, putting these labels on myself. But yet again, very creative and also starting to get bored with teaching public speaking. So I took the leap of faith, and that was 11 years ago, started Moxie. My first gig was T-Mobile reached out to me, which was like, I couldn't believe it. But, talk about imposter syndrome. I'm like, oh, okay, yes, let's do this. And I was asked to teach all of their engineers in the Seattle location, teach them public speaking. And I was so new, Erin, that I didn't even own a laptop. So I carried a laptop bag up there with no laptop in it. And I lived in fear that they were going to open the laptop bag. But I was like, I need to look like I've been doing this for a long time. Yeah, I'm a corporate workshop leader. And so that was the start of Moxie. And that's how I went from being a performer to leading Moxie.
I love it. It's fun to hear your path and hearing those paths. I know our listeners love to hear that. They might be thinking as they're listening to this, like, I'm not a speaker, or I'm not a presenter, I'm not going to big meetings. But I think a lot of people think of public speaking as, that on stage, not I'm thinking too, we had quarterly business reviews all the time with our CEO of our, Fortune 100 company, and how many smart leaders were just really bad at conveying their information. So first, to start macro, what do you see in terms of people like that are at the top of the spectrum, like not even aware that maybe they aren't great at this, or that they have opportunities that could, propel them forward, whether it's their career or their idea, et cetera?
Yeah. Well, I think I said to you when we spoke earlier that I really, truly believe that public speaking is anytime you're not speaking to yourself. And when I first started Moxie, I was thinking, stage keynotes, TED speakers. And I quickly learned that is not how public speaking is for most people. Most people, it's boardrooms. It's one-on-one client facing. It's, town hall meetings. It's executive briefings. That is what public speaking is. And I definitely think for women more than men, unfortunately, that we confuse confidence with competence. And when we feel unconfident, we believe we have nothing to contribute, that we have nothing to say, when really most of the time, there's a reason we were asked to speak at that town hall or that executive briefing. We do have the solution. We do have, we even illuminating the problem. We do have something to say. And yet we get mired in, I think, looking at potentially other very charismatic narcissists who like to hear themselves talk and might look on the outside like very confident people. And then when you unpack, what they really said, it was nothing. Whereas there are so many people, and men too, but I do think that this is unfortunately imposter syndrome is majority is women that have so much to say and yet stop themselves because they feel like either they don't have something to contribute, or somebody else is going to say it better, or they're afraid of being aggressive and not sure where that balance is between, if they're not going to give me a chance to speak up, do I just interrupt? Yeah, you fucking interrupt.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, I just watched the season finale last week of Survivor. It was on demand. I think it finished a week and a half, month and a half ago. Yeah. I've been back into it, and the show that keeps going. And in this latest season, there were 3 lawyers. Only one actually said that they were a lawyer.
Don't tell us who won.
Oh, sorry. I won't tell you who won, but
okay.
let me give you the point without that.
Okay.
one of the things as they were getting down to sort of like the final 6 or so, knowing that they would eventually 3 would get in front of the jury, quote unquote, and have to plead sort of why they should win the $1 million, they were very scared of bringing a lawyer. Some of them were very scared to bring because that's just their skill set, their persuasion. And in the end, the lawyer was the least effective, right? It was really the passion, the authenticity. It wasn't the articulation, like they were really worried about one woman who they didn't even know was a lawyer. They were worried about her articulation. She was so articulate, even just in the island. So I think you're right. I think we judge the wrong things and we don't think about, well, what though at the end of the day really persuades me if I were the decision maker, the listener. Like those things aren't necessarily right. It's not the bravado. It's not the loudness. It's
and they're
not even the articulation.
Completely. And there have been studies that point to the fact that charisma is really overrated. It is not at the end of the day. Definitely, I think in a boardroom is not what people are looking for, what those executives are looking for. And I definitely have been swayed by that. I have had moments, even in Moxie's development, where we've had very charismatic people come in who I look at them and think, I don't trust my gut because I think what they're telling me, it must be true because they're so confident in it. And I have even gotten off track. When COVID hit and Moxie hit rock bottom, I mean, nobody was speaking in public. So we had nothing. It was really for me an identity crisis. I went through a huge, who am I? I had spent the last 10 years fucking charging. I mean, Moxie was my identity. I lost friends. I lost sleep. It was everything when you're growing a business and growing kids. That's kind of all you can do. And then all of a sudden it was totally taken away from us. And we brought on somebody to kind of help lead Moxie. And he was so charismatic. I mean, could sell socks to snake. And convinced me really of that. I mean, basically that I didn't have anything to say, that my North Star for Moxie wasn't really what people wanted. And there was a brief moment where I actually bought it. I was sold a bill of goods and I bought it because I was at such a low point and I wasn't feeling my sense of agency. And it took a long time for me to kind of get still and realize, no, I know there's something here. And I know that the really unique way that I approach teaching people is what people want.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is that moment. There is that of getting swayed by people that seem so, just shiny and eloquent. And but everybody that's shiny and eloquent has nothing to say. But I do think that charisma is overrated. And I do think, and I know this from coaching so many people, even VPs of Fortune 500 companies get nervous. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets nervous. And I think it's really easy to look at people at the top and just see and be like, they're so confident, they're bulletproof, they're, and you don't see how far they've come. And you don't know that even for them, confidence is a moving target. And there are situations where they might feel really confident, I know this shit. And then there are situations where they also feel unconfident. For all of us.
Hey there, it's Erin. I'm just popping in real quick to ask you a question. Is there any chance you know someone who is looking for a keynote speaker for their upcoming event? Look, I know that many event organizers, they struggle to find a speaker who provides both tangible value and business knowledge, but that also lights their audience on fire. And I truly believe there aren't many speakers like me out there who are both former corporate executives and professionally trained speakers. And there's definitely none that roll in with an orange suitcase they unpack with their audience. Trust me on that. I would love nothing more than to bring my message of using authenticity as your strategic career and business advantage to people spinning in your universe, especially if you'd be there. I promise my talks always create an immediate buzz, but not just right after, but for months and years after the event is over. You can learn more about my message, style, and reviews and share my speaking info by going to beauthenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. That's B, just the letter B, authenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. Or of course, we have it right in the show notes to make it easy for you too.
I want to talk about some of your techniques that I think everybody listening can use. But before we do that, I want to start first with the person that is super unconfident and has every once in a while these opportunities to sort of lead a meeting or speak at a meeting. That kind of person, where's the place you start when you're coaching with them? What's the first thing that they need to do to sort of at least get in the game a little bit?
Yeah, I cannot stress enough the importance of preparation. I think a lot of us, because we don't know how to practice, or we don't think anyone else is doing it, or we feel silly doing it, we don't prepare. And then we thrust ourselves into these situations where we're already so nervous. And then we wonder why it doesn't go according to plan, because there was no plan. That is always where I start.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
How do you teach somebody to really prepare, but also my fear is they prepare so much that they come off as robotic and not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, without getting too deep in the weeds of preparation, I never recommend that anybody memorizes verbatim. I say memorize talking points, so that it does come out slightly differently every time, but you're adhering to the same kind of timing, the same talking points in your slides. When you're going to the next slides, you're not a deer in headlight when that slide comes up and you're like, oh, shit. I know I was going to make a point there. And the only part that I recommend that people memorize verbatim is the very beginning, because that's when we're most nervous and our prefrontal cortex is shut down and we say all sorts of shit that we didn't want to say. And we're like, I had this great story and I don't know what happened. Well, what happened is you were in fight or flight. So memorize that. And memorize your very ending, like your call to action, like land the plane the way you want, land the plane, but the rest, just do bullets. And so that way it doesn't throw you if it doesn't come out exactly the same, and it doesn't sound robotic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think there's so much confidence that comes just from preparation. And I'm huge on starting with breath work. I just think it is just our power tool. And it's the first thing that goes out the window when we get nervous. And so even before we start on content, I started breath work.
Yeah. Tell us more.
Yeah. I mean, just that our fight or flight mechanism, when that hits, we stop breathing. I mean, our body is literally protecting our vital organs, which is so fucked up that like after 2 million years, we don't know the difference between, getting attacked from saber-toothed tiger or, giving a presentation. It makes a lot of sense though that, you think about caveman, cavewoman days. If you were ostracized from the cave, if you were ostracized from the clan, you're going to die. Like caring about what people think of us is so hardwired into us because of that. So when people start to give themselves a hard time, like, I don't know why I'm so nervous about this, it makes total sense why you're so nervous about this, because you care. Like, it's like you're already feeling bad and now you're making yourself feel bad about feeling bad. So let that go. It's hardwired into you. And so, when we stop breathing and all sorts of crazy shit happens to us, like our hands start to shake, our voices start to quiver, we forget what we're supposed to say. Just being worried about that happening, not knowing if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, that is such a powerless feeling. It's like this wave is going to come over me, but I don't know when it's going to come over me or how hard it's going to hit me or if it's going to take me down or if I'll be able to recover. So I think that when you learn to use breathing, you take the power back. You're in the driver's seat again. You have this tool that's going to work for you when you need it. But you have to practice it. You have to practice it ahead of time. You can't just expect it to work when you're in that presentation.
What do we need to do to practice it? And then what does it look like? I mean, I know that sounds stupid, just breathe, or you know,
yeah, it's not just breathe.
What does the audience need to do tomorrow to start doing more?
Yeah, I'm going to give you just like nutshell and then say, if you want more, I have a lot of YouTube videos about it. I know that sounds so obnoxious, but it's really difficult and, to encapsulate. But here's the first thing you should know is that your diaphragm, I'm going to stand up. Can you see me?
Yeah.
So short. I don't know. Can you see my cat sitting behind me?
Oh, right.
Moxie. She breathes from this diaphragm. So our diaphragm is a sheath of muscle that's right here. It sits between our chest and our abdomen, and it's dome shaped. It goes like this.
Okay.
And its whole purpose in our body is to push more oxygen into our lungs. But what happens when we're nervous is we tighten our diaphragm because our vital organs are all behind our diaphragm. And then we can't get enough oxygen into our lungs. And when we can't get enough oxygen into our lungs, all of those crazy things start happening. Our brain starts to shut down because there's not enough oxygen, all sorts of horrible things. So we don't want to do that. So the best way to kind of find your diaphragm, and I taught a group of women last week, and I'm like, we're not talking about that kind of diaphragm. We're talking about this kind of diaphragm. You know where that one is, probably in your bathroom cabinet. So to find your diaphragm, the best way to do it is to lay down on your back and put something heavy like a book or a laptop on your belly and just watch it rising and falling. So then you can locate it. And then what you want to try to do is inhale and like imagine that there's a big balloon in your belly. Inhale, fill up that balloon. And then in your exhale, while that laptop or the book is going down, let all of that air out. So you're like imagining, and just start there, imagining filling up that balloon with air. You're pushing out that book or that laptop. And then on your exhale, all that air goes out of your balloon and out of your mouth. And you can see your laptop book going in and out. If you are able to do that, you are starting to incorporate your diaphragm. And even just doing that simple exercise will help you start to engage your diaphragm. And when you are in those situations where you're feeling so nervous that you're not going to tighten like this. Mm-hmm. And then once you've done that, if you can do a simple, try to inhale for a count of 6, hold it for a count of 4, and exhale for a count of 4. And I always say your inhale should be longer because you want to take in as much air as possible. So inhale for a count of 6, hold for a count of 4, and then exhale for a count of 4. And then just for kicks and giggles, I like to imagine that when I'm inhaling confidence, power. That might be a color some days. That might be like a person that I'm just going to like stick it to them that day. Like it might just be like whatever I'm feeling that's like this inner fucking badass warrior goddess energy that I'm going to breathe in. And then I exhale all of my doubt, all of my frustration, all of my stagnation. And I really visualize that while I'm breathing. So just that alone could be the difference. That could be the difference. Just that alone, just learning to breathe and stay present and ground yourself and remind yourself of what you have to contribute and offer.
I love that. You also do an exercise that I'm so fascinated by. You do this open mouth power pose. And again, I know it's a podcast, so it's hard to see.
Okay. So I know it seems so fucking ridiculous. But it is. So the reason we do this stretching exercise is so that you can speak clearly. And I always say that great leaders never mumble. And I have been in situations with leaders who refuse to do it. And then they go on into their meeting and they talk about their slide deck. I'm like, we should have seen the exercise. You wouldn't have said slide deck. So it's a stretching exercise so that you can make sure you speak clearly. It's that simple. And it looks ridiculous. We feel ridiculous doing it. Obviously, you're not going to do it in front of people. Like, do it in your shower, do it in your car. Do it when you're sitting in traffic. And it's really just bringing awareness to opening your mouth wider. Because as much as we've talked about charisma is not where it's at, there is something to be said for, our perceptions of people who mumble or kind of speak with small mouths like this. I mean, it's boring. It doesn't have gravitas. It doesn't, first of all, I can barely hear you. And so that's that. So we do a stretching exercise, and it's from the Yale School of Drama. This is like me pulling in all the performing arts techniques. And I always say, like, if you went backstage at any theater, any movie, you would see actors doing all sorts of crazy shit, like warming up their bodies and voices so that they can perform. And obviously we are not performing when we're presenting, but we do want to make sure that we can be heard by the person in the back of the room. We do want to make sure people see us as being confident and deserving to be there and eloquent and well-spoken. So that's that.
Hey, it's Erin. Look, I'm not sure if you're a book kind of person, but if you are, and you're looking for a self-development-y type book that isn't stuffy and snoozy, I sincerely think you'd love my book, You Do You-ish. I tossed aside the standard BS most nonfiction books dish up, and instead, I give you real, sometimes tough love, coaching on how to think about getting the career you deserve without working harder. It'll reframe how you think about the concept of authenticity in the workplace. It'll be sure that you hear and rewrite your sucky songs, and walk you through my humans framework, the 6 principles of strategic authenticity. Since it's been rolling now for over 2 years, and it has over 130 Amazon reviews and a 4.9 rating, I can say with complete sincerity, I really think you'd love it. You can buy a copy by searching You Do You-ish on Amazon, or head to the show notes for a direct link.
I'd love to get into a couple of stories. You talked about sort of high level of transformation that you've seen. And I don't know what the story is, but you mentioned when we spoke before something about a Netflix story. So I'm like dying to know what the Netflix story is.
Oh, I've got lots of Netflix stories. Yeah, Netflix, they were great to work with. They still are. So I think you are talking about the story. We're talking about executive briefings and feeling confident and feeling like you have a voice and you have something to say. And when I first started working with Netflix, I was asked to teach. I have 2 good Netflix stories. I'll tell this one first. Okay. I was asked to teach a group of marketers public speaking, and our main workshop is called Speak with Moxie. And so I went in there to teach Speak with Moxie. And a group of these very young women came in, and they were just like downtrodden. They were just like just looked like this is the last place they want to be. And when I talked to them on break, they told me that they had just had their meeting with Jason Bateman for Ozark. And yeah, so they have these meetings with the showrunners to try to tell them how they would like to market the show. And I learned a lot of words from Netflix. One of the words I learned is dramedy, which is like a drama comedy, which is definitely Ozark is definitely more drama than comedy. But they were trying to convince Jason Bateman, and apparently very poorly, that Ozark is not a Black comedy. And he didn't agree and was about to pull a show from Netflix if this was the way they were going to go down the route. And they were beside themselves of like this. And so my work with those women was not about opening their mouths or any of that. It was about really standing their ground and recognizing that they had something to contribute, that they really, they were really onto something as far as this is the direction that we need to take the show. And so I convinced them to have another meeting, prepare ahead of time, show him clips of why you think that this show is not a comedy, and show him how, like, specifically how you're going to market the show in a way that will do his work justice, and why. And they did. And clearly, if you've seen Ozark, like, that is the direction the marketing took. It's a pretty dark drama. And so I think for these like young but super talented women, it was really just about owning your shit and recognizing, like, yeah, it's Jason Bateman, but you have something really important to contribute and a voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right, because, we've talked a little bit about, calming your fears and being more articulate. But there is also the component of persuasion and not just confidence, but how you present your opinion or your idea, right? There's a lot in the substance that obviously, we can't solve completely here, but part of that is though, just first of all, standing up and saying, I know what I'm talking about, but doing that in a way that's going to persuade.
Right. Yeah. You have to have the evidence to back it up, but it all starts with even just believing that you have something.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think they were, like, really intimidated that it was Jason Bateman and maybe he was right.
Right.
And even if he wasn't right, we're not going to go back to him and say, like, oh, yes, we're going back to him. And, the other kind of fun Netflix story, when I started with Netflix, the reason I started with them was I was approached by a woman who was a senior VP there who had a fear of public speaking. And she had managed to get this far in her career, but it kept her up at night, the nights before. And she also would get herself in such a tailspin, she would turn red. And then when she turned red, it made her more nervous. Yeah. And so when we started to really unpack, we first started breathing because we needed to get her breathing so that she didn't turn red. But when we really started to unpack what was going on there, they say Netflix is the place where A-type personalities come to feel bad about themselves, which I think is true. And, she's up there with not only a lot of men, but highly educated, ivory tower, people that she felt like she had to be like them. Like, that is what a senior VP should look like. Mm-hmm. And when we started to look at, why her team loved her so much and why she'd gone this far, it was that she was so fucking real. Yeah. She wasn't, she was well spoken, but she was, like, the only one that would call out, like, real shit in the room. Mm. And she was the only one that was real with her team and, would talk about her life and struggles and was approachable. And that was really her strength. And when she really owned that and was like, I'm not going to try anymore to be like all of these people that I think I should be like, I'm just going to be like the best version of me. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but when she did that, it was like she was fucking unstoppable. And started speaking on behalf of Netflix all over the world. And it was just this kind of mindset switch of, like, I had the right to be there, even though I didn't go to Harvard, and even though I don't have a master's degree, and even though I don't, I haven't worked at all of these with Disney and HBO, even though I haven't done those things, I have the right to be here. And I have something to say.
It comes back to that confidence. What else should people think about to start to have them, one, focus on their skill set in this and crush it to step it up? What else would you suggest they focus on?
I mean, there's so many things, but I think one common misnomer we have is that confident people are afraid. And I think that we're all afraid and you show up anyway. And even if you're terrified, I mean, this is something I'm always trying to teach my kids, which of course they're not going to listen to me because what would I have to say about confidence and fear? I mean, they're teenagers, so that makes a lot of sense. But I think that, so many of us are so afraid of failing or so afraid of judgment. And I get it. I get how powerful that is, that we justify why we're not putting ourselves out there. We justify, all sorts of reasons why we don't have to show up or we shouldn't show up. And, whether that's just speaking up at a meeting or going for like this big interview, or even if you're a leader, like having that difficult conversation with a team member, we stop ourselves and we justify why we don't need to do it because we're afraid. And I think the more we can normalize fear and the more we can bring vulnerability and say, it's like we're all fucking terrified of something and do it anyway. I think that's where you start.
Yeah. And follow-up question to that. What about the person that's listening and was like, I'm not afraid, but I want to be awesome. Like I want to go from good to great.
Yeah.
What about those people that are like, I actually think this is a bit of a superpower, but I've never really done any training. Like,
yeah.
What about for them?
Yeah, that's like a whole different, I think a lot of the work we do at Moxie is unpacking great because a lot of people aren't afraid of public speaking. Really lucky if you're not. And so the most of the work we do with people that want to go from good to great is really about content. It's about learning how to tell better stories. It's about, sometimes it could be a better slide deck. Sometimes it could be learning how to rehearse because they don't rehearse. And so nobody's ever given them feedback. Sometimes they think they're really great because they've never rehearsed and they've never been given feedback. And then, we start to work with them and they're like, this part is really great. And this part could use some work. So I think that for people that want to go from good to great, it really starts with find somebody that you think is great, and unpack what they're doing and either apply it to what you're doing and what can you learn there. And, or if you can actually have a conversation with them, if you can show them, what you're doing and see if they can give you any advice. So really starting to unpack great that way, because I think it's, we all know when somebody is great, but I think it's sometimes the unpacking of what really makes them great. We don't spend enough time doing that. Or we just think it's just they're innately great, right? Like I think, people think like Martin Luther King, great orator, but they don't realize that like he spent 15 years preaching before he gave his I Have a Dream speech. He grew up in a house of preachers. Like he was practicing his shit over and over and over and over. He didn't start out great. So I think if you're one of those people that's like, I'm good and I want to be great, don't like dismiss the people who are great like they were just born that way and they've always been great, and start to unpack, where did they start? How did they get there? And what do I need to do? Which requires a lot of honesty and gut check. And sometimes that's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look at the areas where we're not great.
Yeah, especially in that kind of realm. Well, the good news is you have a company called the Moxie Institute, and you offer program services to both companies and individuals, correct?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We do workshops and one-on-one coaching.
Awesome. Tell people where they can find more information.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. MoxieInstitute.com. That easy. That's our website. And on our website is everything we do, from one-on-one coaching to corporate workshops. We also do public workshops, and they're virtual, so anybody can attend from the comfort of their own home or office. And we're starting what we're calling Moxie University, which is going to be our first subscription-based program. So every month it will be a combination of live classes and pre-recorded classes and Q&A with me, Ask Me Anything sessions. And so that's really exciting. And that's launching next month.
Oh, that's great. What good timing. So, and then you have the YouTube videos. I've watched several of those. Those are great. Because some of this stuff is, you need to see it. You need to see it. And so just reading a blog or a book or something like that. So go out and check out moxieinstitute.com and also the YouTube page as well. This helps our community. We've been doing this podcast for 5 years. We're just all about just constantly bringing them new people. You will definitely get new followers. I love seeing all of our listeners who now are like have tentacles out to former guest. So
Yeah,
thanks so much for bringing your energy, your sincerity, your genuineness. I mean,
a cat,
your cat,
my pussy.
Well, thank you, Kat, for not putting your butt in our face for the entire episode.
Yeah.
That's a well-trained cat you got there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll get to talk with you again soon and do some more Moxie in the future.
Yeah. More Moxie. Absolutely.
Hey, it's Erin with a teeny request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you'd like us to stick around, plus you want it to continue to grow so we can kind of swindle bigger and more knowledgeable guests to join us and to keep providing you with tangible and inspiring actions you can take to achieve the career and life you deserve, could you please just take 1 minute to leave us a rating and a review? Those reviews go a long way in attracting guests to the show, and candidly, they really make Nicole and I's day. We see you. We really do. So when you have the time and inspiration, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you.